Hello everyone. Namaste. My name is Shubham Parekh, and I'm the Vice President of Internal Affairs at Speaker Series India at Berkeley. And today I'm joined by my colleague Pratyush Singh Thakur. We at Speaker Series India at Berkeley would like to extend a warm welcome to all of you for joining the event. Since some of you might be new to our organization, I would like to give a short introduction about ourselves before we begin. Speaker Series India at Berkeley is a forum where we invite speakers from the political, social, activism, and cultural spectrum of India to engage with the Berkeley community in issues which have a direct impact on the lives of 1.3 billion Indians. In past, members associated to our organization have hosted eminent speakers like Rahul Gandhi, Shashi Tharoor, Omar Abdullah, Montek Singh Ahluwalia, and most recently, the noted journalist Ravish Kumar, Sri Javed Akhtar, and Anand Kumar of Super 30 fame. Carrying forward a legacy of inviting leaders from every sector, today we have the most credible voice of the current Indian government in matters related to industry and economy present amongst us. I would like now to request my colleague Pratyush to introduce our esteemed speaker for the day.
It is our pleasure to have amongst us India's Sherpa to G20, G7, Member of Parliament, and one of the most admired politicians of India, Mr. Suresh Prabhu. Mr. Suresh Prabhu, a six-time parliamentarian, currently serves as India's Sherpa to the G7 and G20. He has served as a Union Cabinet Minister for over 10 years, handling numerous portfolios such as railways, commerce and industry, civil aviation, heavy industries and public enterprises, power, fertilizers and chemicals, and environment and forest. Sir is known for undertaking reforms, scripting turnarounds, and achieving superlative results by working in a mission mode. Mr. Prabhu has been instrumental in driving structural reforms in almost every facet of the modern Indian economy. Mr. Prabhu introduced the first ever agriculture export policy in India and also initiated the development of the first ever e-commerce policy. A strong supporter of sustainable development, he has promoted the use of cleaner technologies nationally and globally. And a lesser known fact, he is also a chartered accountant with an All India rank 11. Mr. Prabhu continues to represent India on various international platforms too, and chairs a number of parliamentary forums, including one on environment and maritime groups. On behalf of our club, Speaker Series India at Berkeley, I extend warm gratitude to you for joining us this morning and giving us your valuable time. It is a pleasure to be able to host you, sir. We also thank our audience for joining us from around the world. We hope you enjoy this session. Just an instruction, you can send in your question answers in the question answer box if you have any, and we shall entertain those at the end of the session. Thank you for joining us. I would now invite our guest, Mr. Suresh Prabhu, to address us on the topic India's way forward, challenges, policies, and geopolitics.
Thank you, sir. I think you can begin your speech now.
Should I speak?
Yeah, sir. Thank you.
Okay. So, depending upon where you are, good morning, good evening, but not necessarily good night. So, let me wish you all a pleasant day. Whatever is the rest of the day left for you, and so the following good days to all of you. Thank you very much for this Berkeley community for inviting me. One of the best schools in the world, and I'm sure the brightest students in the world are part of this community. So I'm very happy that I'm able to talk to you, meet you, and I'm sure over a period of time we'll all get more opportunities to meet, maybe in person as well as we're doing it now virtually. So my dear friends, this very interesting topic, India, one challenges, then policy, and then geopolitics. So let me first talk about a challenge. India obviously has to grow economically at a much faster rate to catch up not just with the rest of the world, but also with the expectations of the people in India itself. And doing that, the rate of growth has to percolate down to the people for whose benefit the economy is growing. So the twin challenge is first, grow fast, so that we have more economic output. At the same time, make sure that this economic output is shared by large number of people so that it does not result into economic growth with more social inequality. And that is a big challenge primarily. To do that, we have to work on multiforous policy. I'll come to it later. The second challenge in terms of making it happen is have allow Indian entrepreneurship to grow. Because India's entrepreneurship is well known, very talented people who, when leave Indian shores, they succeed a great deal. So to allow the entrepreneurship to grow, we have to make a hassle-free business environment. And that's a challenge, and that challenge needs to be addressed through various means. Another important challenge is create, therefore, to allow the entrepreneurship to grow, make India's infrastructure should be really world class, so that obviously that provides a platform for the entrepreneurship to grow. And infrastructure would need at least each year upwards of $250 billion of investment. And that will keep growing as the economy will grow. And therefore, we need maybe a few $1 trillion of investment in infrastructure in the next decade and a half. And that would mean that we need to find the money for investment. And that investment, therefore, can come in twofold. One from domestic investment, so we'll have to increase the savings rate. And the second is by getting foreign investment to come into this. For that, we'll have to have a policy conducive to the foreign investment. Also, the investment that will come in has to be in such a way that meets the requirement of infrastructure. What I mean by that is infrastructure needs investment with long-term maturity. The funds that go into infrastructure will start repaying to the lender or to the equity holders after maybe a decade. Because the nature of infrastructure itself is such that it does not necessarily start giving returns immediately. There's a gestation period. And therefore, you have to work out a policy which can actually take care of infrastructure investment to be coming to India. Another important challenge of India is that there are too many people who are dependent on agriculture, sharing a very small share of national income. So 14% of national GDP comes from agriculture, but more people share it. So that's another very important challenge. And to do that, we have to diversify the economy. We have to make sure that we go into more people can be absorbed into industry and services, and therefore the economy has to be diversified. Another big challenge India has is quality of life. And the quality of life depends upon so many factors. Therefore, the Prime Minister Narendra Modi has come out with a concept of ease of living, which can ensure that it captures all the aspects of human life, which we normally do in terms of Human Development Index. The United Nations Development Program does it every year. But if you can have an internal policy mechanism which can integrate into it the ease of living, which can actually substantially improve. So the quality of life will be captured by this. But one of the big challenge India faces along with the rest of the world is that of environment. Because environment is a very important issue which can actually improve the quality of life significantly. The environment can be measured in terms of water availability, air quality, land, and it's not degraded land. All of that put together will bring in the element of environment. And that has been much challenged by the fact that Himalayas, which provides water to almost 40% of humanity, not just in India, but in South Asia as well as Southeast Asia, it is actually called a water tower of the world, is under serious threat because of climate change. So another challenge India is having is related to environment. we can add one more challenge, and that's something that every person in India, or for that matter anywhere in the world, would like to live in peace. And therefore, the one of the threat that peace is challenged by terrorism. That's another challenge we are facing, and we live in a very difficult neighborhood, so that the challenge becomes even more serious. Now, how do you make sure that we deal with these challenges? So one is to increase the growth of economy, which can make sure that quality of life will improve, economic prosperity can come in. And to do that, we have to have a vision. So Prime Minister Modi has been trying to work on that. And as a commerce industry minister, I had prepared a plan for a $5 trillion economy, which would mean 20% of that will come from industry. That's $1 trillion. 60% of that will come from services, and remaining $1 trillion will come from agriculture and allied services. For each of these, a detailed plan was made as to get to 20%, that is $1 trillion. How do you make sure that what will contribute that industrial output of $1 trillion? So we had prepared a detailed plan for it. For the 60%, that is a $3 trillion of services, again we prepared a plan as to how to identify 12 champion sectors of services which can significantly contribute to make sure that we add to this output. And agriculture, how to make sure that people will get more income by doing agriculture exports. So first time ever in India, India's first ever agriculture export policy. And it has been again tuned by finding out which district of India can sell what to which country. And therefore, we actually prepared a matrix for what can really go from India into which country and for which district of India, for which, along with the state governments, we have prepared a detailed plan for it. Now, coming to, I said, the equality issue. The growth may come, but where is the equality? And therefore, I started a new project that if each district of India can grow by 3 or 4% more than the normal growth that is happening today, that would ensure that people at the district level, at a grassroots level, will first enjoy the benefit of economic growth, and therefore they don't have to wait for so-called trickle-down effect that will come from macro development. And therefore, micro can push macro, that would be the ideal way, then macro promising micro, that trickle-down will happen sometime or the other. And that's a hope which has been belied. So why not we work on a different model of bottoms-up approach, pushing the growth from the bottom, so that automatically the growth will happen there. So there is no need for an afterthought of inclusive development to come later. And that would make sure that equality, which is one of the principal driving force for growth, will be guaranteed because of this measure. So we are actually working on that. The other aspect of India's growth will come from external sector. So exports in India, which is now about $330 billion. In fact, really, we have to work very hard on to make it better. It's a merchandise export, $330 billion. Then there are services exports. So we have to make sure that merchandise exports and service exports both will have to increase substantially. So as a commerce industry minister, I prepared a plan as to how do you make sure that we can get more and more exports to rise, and which country can import that, what products can go there, what kind of quality we need. So we based all this strategy on a detailed market research. And therefore that was also done. That's a part of a policy. Other part that we worked on was how do you make sure that India can take advantage of changing situation. Now I'm talking about changing situation only after post-COVID. I'm talking about more than 2.5 years ago, I had set up a group under the chairmanship of very eminent economist, Dr. Sujit Bhalla, who is now currently in Washington, D.C. as part of International Monetary Fund as executive director. I had set up a committee under his chairmanship. And a present foreign minister, Dr. Jaishankar was a member of that committee because that time he was in private sector with Tata. I'd met some top people from industry, from strategic community as a part of this group to prepare a strategy as to how we should take advantage of an emerging situation in which India's share in global market must rise, as well as India should be able to attract more investment from others. And therefore, this was already made. So this was actually a policy paper which was prepared 2.5 years ago, even before Corona happened. So I'm not claiming to be Bill Gates who could foresee the pandemic coming. I'm not obviously as intelligent and as accomplished as Bill Gates, so I could never think about it. But I definitely wanted to find out how can we open the gates for India's new investment coming in. Therefore, I had actually prepared this strategy quite some time back. Again, to ensure that grassroots benefits more, we had prepared a plan of how can locally made products will get geographical indications, whereby they'll get more value. And in India, each district of India has a very unique skills developed over generations. And based on the skill, there has been an economic activity which goes on. Can we not identify that economic activity with that particular geographical place so that those who practice it from their value of labor? Therefore, we had actually worked on that. And therefore, that was also the policy which was made and put in place. The aviation is very important because that is the part of a connectivity. So as a railway minister, I prepared a budget which was almost $40 billion, the highest ever in railways history for the 5-year period, so that we could increase the capex substantially to increase augmentation of capacity, modernize infrastructure, and all of that put together can bring in more tangible results for the railway. So along with the connectivity, air connectivity will also play an important role. And we have seen it globally, that connectivity can add to more economic activity, bring people from the land in close proximity with the markets. Therefore, that will also help. In fact, recently, the Prime Minister Modi has announced a lot of innovative measures to liberate the agriculture trade domestically, so that farmer will be able to sell his products anywhere in the country and removing artificial barriers that were imposed by policies on agriculture trade. So that will again bring in a lot of benefits. But to get that benefit into reality, we would need logistics and connectivity. So therefore, we have to develop a connectivity plan, but also as minister in charge of logistics. And first time we created an integrated logistics department. We are actually working on logistic policy and logistic action plan. So all of this put together is a policy response to ensure that we can work in line with the aspirations of people, wherein the growth can happen, which will guarantee better lives for the people. Environment, as I said, is a very important aspect. And to do that, we have to change the energy mix, because there's a direct link between energy and environment. In fact, I had set up a very interesting think tank now, which is one of the leading think tanks of the world. I'm the founding chairman, and I had to resign for me when I joined the government. Was the think called Council for Energy, Environment and Water, CEW. This is a think tank which job is to find out how can we bring relevant environmental concerns into one mainstream integrated policy response. And one of the things that we need to do, as I said, is to change energy mix. So India is now currently trying to add 100,000 megawatts from solar and another 60,000 megawatts from wind. So that would change energy mix substantially, which can have a positive impact on environment. It can reduce the greenhouse gas emission, can also improve the ambient air quality. Even if you put renewable energy into the grid, it can benefit all consumers to benefit from it. But also, if you are thinking about electric mobility, the mobility based on cleaner fuels is what is necessary. So to bring efficient transportation, which is so important, along with that, clean energy is as important. And therefore, changing energy mix is one of the principal criteria to do this happen. Another challenge for India coming out of environment will be water. And as you know, water, we have only 4% of water of the world and 17% of the population. So how do you ensure that clean water, potable drinking water, as well as water enough for agriculture and industry are provided in a proper manner? As a minister in charge of a very important water project that time called Interlink of Rivers under our late Prime Minister Atal Bihari Vajpayee, I was working on that. And at that time, I said that there are many ministries and departments of the government deal with same issue, that's water. The source is the same, but there are multiple operators working on it. So at that time, we had thought about it. We have prepared a proposal that 13 arms of the government which were dealing with water should be brought under one roof. I'm very happy that Prime Minister Modi has taken this very important decision and made one integrated ministry called Jal Shakti Ministry, which in turn will ensure that water-related issues are properly addressed. Agriculture, as I said, a good policy response in terms of opening the markets, good response in terms of ensuring that we'll have supply chains linked to the field to the marketplace, and that will add to very important outcomes. Now, financing of infrastructure is going to be an important issue, as I said, is a challenge. For that, if we get the pension funds of the world, Australia, the super pension funds of Australia, have more funds than the funds investable surplus, is more than their GDP. More or less the same situation in Canada. So if we can bring the funds, they need also investment avenues, investment opportunities. So India can offer a fantastic opportunity with good bankable projects, with almost all the risk factored into it so that nobody has to be greeted by surprise. And if you can prepare a plan of this kind, which is being done by a very eminent institute called National Infrastructure Investment Fund in India, which is India's semi-sovereign fund, and that will ensure that we'll be able to create infrastructure in the shortest possible time. I said, and that's a part of the geopolitics, that is the challenge coming from terrorism. As you know, we live in a very difficult neighborhood. India is surrounded by certain countries, as well as we have external threat coming from some of these countries which promote, harbor, and make it as part of a state policy to bring terrorism into other countries. So geopolitics become very important. Our Prime Minister Modi has been talking about in multilateral forums that we should create an international front, a global front to fight terrorism. That would be a very important element of ensuring that people, not just in India, but all over the world, can live in peace. It's a minimum expectation every citizen rightfully has. Therefore, to make that happen, we have to make sure that we create an atmosphere, a platform, a coalition of all those countries who believe that the world should be peaceful. And therefore, as a part of a geopolitics, we should try to create an integrated platform of several countries to have a common goal of making the world peaceful. So that is very important that we should do. India has very good relationship with most of the important blocs of the world. India has been a very important participant into all the global bodies. We strongly believe, if it is part of our geopolitics we talk about, we strongly believe in multilateralism. We feel that the only way the world can progress in a true democratic way, in which there will be a participation of small countries as well as big economies, the multilateralism is the only way out. And that is not just for economic issues, but for social issues, for environmental issues and everything else. So the only way the world can benefit immensely by setting common goals is by having multilateral approach towards most of the issues that we are facing today. So I think that should be the driving force, the motivating philosophy for geopolitics to move forward. I feel that we are living in a world which is becoming more and more challenging, particularly after the corona, because economic activity has almost come to standstill. It has huge negative impact on society. Many people are not used to just staying at home for months together, not even weeks now, and with a lot of uncertainty. Yesterday, the WHO said that there could be several billion people may die because of corona in the second wave. It's a very worrying forecast. And they also gave a parallel of Spanish flu, wherein more than 50 million people it seems died. So it's a very challenging situation. And we have to be ready to fight that. So the world moving in difficult phase, but also very uncertain phase. And because nobody knows when it's going to get over. Everybody is hoping for that vaccine. And the vaccine may come, not necessarily it will cure with that. Hopefully it will cure. But not everybody will get a vaccine at the same time. Therefore, we have to move into a very uncertain, challenging, difficult phase of human life, not just for one country, but for the whole world. Very interestingly, the people who are affected most are in the G20 countries. So G20 is not just accounting for 86% of the global economic output, but also responsible for most of the affected person because of corona and most of the casualties arising out of it. So it's a very unique situation that the most developed part of the world is worse affected. So we have to also find out the reason for it. We have to work together in the next few years' time to ensure that we'll be able to focus a pandemic before it comes and be ready with not just early warning system, but with a proper response system to deal with it. I think this is what we need to do. I know that you have to end in next few minutes, but before that, I'd like to ask some questions. So I like to stop here, though I could expand it. And therefore, I will be happy to answer the questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Prabhu, for the insightful speech. It was a pleasure to hear you speak with so much clarity on what lays ahead for India and how we can best leverage the situation. Thank you so much. Since we are running short on time and we have dozens of questions from the audience, I'm sorry, but I have to jump right into the Q&A.
Garam karke. Yeah, please.
Yeah, I think I'll begin with like a recent trend, which is like one of the latest developments on the other side of the world. So as we well know, since all of us are international students, the Trump administration recently put on hold several foreign work visas, including the coveted H-1B, on which on average 70% of the beneficiaries are Indians. Although temporary in nature, many believe this drastic step is indicating of an overarching belief that the US is no longer accepting of foreign talent. This is surely going to spun a larger crisis of reverse migration of our highly educated youth coming back to India. Like our rural economy was underprepared to handle the reverse migration of our laborers, do you think the Indian economy is prepared to provide such high-paying jobs to our highly educated youth who has got accustomed to the soft cushion jobs of the Western world, and as you said, the quality of life and ease of living? And if we are not ready, what are we doing to address this problem?
Firstly, we must accept the reality that all countries in the world are facing unprecedented challenges. The response of each country has to be seen in the context of them. When you are facing a challenge which has never been there before, so you normally try to react in a way that was never expected of you. In the US, the unemployment is really high. In fact, it is historic high. And that may be because of temporary job losses, but the fear is that some of those job losses may be permanent. And therefore, there is going to be a big challenge for US. But US has benefited immensely by the Indian technology companies setting jobs there. By the Indians working there, it has added a lot of positive impact on US economy. In fact, we have even done a study on that. And as the Commerce Minister shared it with the Commerce Department of the United States, how Indian companies have created more jobs in US, how Indians working there have added more value to US economy, And therefore, it is not taking away the job, but adding to the overall economic growth of the United States. So I hope that paper that's submitted to Former Department of United States will go down to the level of decision makers and they'll understand the importance of it. Yeah, I hope it's temporary, as the president himself has said. Now, and I'm sure my government will talk to them, try to work with them to make sure that they understand it. The second aspect is what you are talking about is if people have to come back, what happens? See, you know, if they have to come back, they are most welcome because it is their home. They have to come back. At a time when we are also expecting more people to come back from the Middle East and Gulf countries because that's where also the job losses are very significant. But I think the trend is going to be that in the next few years' time, we'll have to plan a different kind of career. Those who, and depending on a particular career path, the countries which were looking like passport to heaven, I think they are also challenged by the situation. I think therefore we'll have to think about a different strategy. We'll have to create more jobs in India. And the jobs will have to be created at various levels. There will be jobs which will be skill-based jobs. There will be jobs which will be for professionals. There will be jobs which will have to be created for even highly skilled people in very specialized skills and medicine and others. So we'll have to create jobs for them as well. So it's going to be a very challenging situation for India at a time when we have to create jobs for those who are already in India and to plan also for those who will be coming from outside India. And of course, as I said, it is their home. They are to most welcome to come back anytime they feel like. But when they come back, to create that opportunity is also one important priority. And we'll have to deal with that.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Since Shubham recently referred to the recent events that have been happening, I want to bring light to another event of significance, which is the recent statement from Donald Trump calling for the postponement of the G7 summit, as he believes that it isn't representative of the current world and the world economy. While his call for the inclusion of India has certainly enthused a lot of us, we would like to know, apart from a higher notion of being a global power, how an inclusion in the G7 for India will specifically benefit India? And if it helps, how will your job as the G7 Sherpa change in this process?
Actually, G7, as we know by definition itself, is a grouping of 7 countries. That it's called G8, and Russia was part of it. Now, minus Russia, it's G7. Uh, and that G7 grouping, obviously, as President Trump has correctly pointed out, does not represent the reality of today's world. Because the world has changed quite a lot when the G7 was trying to meet and try to address the global issue. So President Trump has suggested that countries like India, Russia, Australia, and Korea should be made part of it. Of course, this is a proposal of United States, has to be endorsed and shared by the remaining G6 countries. And if it happens, then it's a formal expansion of G7 and it will become G11 if there are 4, or G10 there are 3, or whatever number of countries added, that will become. But that's still a formal gathering, formal grouping. But while this happens, the last G7 summit took place in France, in Biarritz, on the very beautiful resort in France. In there, we saw that India was invited. And Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi participated. I was with him to assist him. And there we could see that India played a very key role, though as an invitee, because that's the prerogative of the presidency to invite any country, and they invited India, in which Prime Minister Modi made a very important contribution by leading a talk on digitalization of the world, digital economy of the world. And that itself was very well appreciated. So when it gets expanded, India will continue to play that role. India has always been at the forefront of being part of multilateralism, which has been very important player and participant into all the important global action. Therefore, we'll be very happy as it happens. We'll just see how it goes. But as I said, while it not yet India is formally part of G7, India was invited. And therefore, we really look forward to what will be and how it evolves.
Okay, so I think like as expected for the next question, I would like to shift our focus to the current crisis and how it changes key aspects of the economy. So I think one positive takeaway is that the financialization and the formalization process of the economy has accelerated. However, we witnessed during demonetization that the informal Indian economy is certainly not ready for this shock. Um, do you feel the reaction from the MSMEs will be the same around this time, or has the preparedness been higher this time around?
So, the MSMEs are the backbone of India's economy, as they are in more or less all the economies of the world. In fact, even if you take the global economy, MSMEs will be the backbone of the global economy as well. And today, incidentally, is the MSME Day. So today is an important day which we are celebrating. The MSMEs face too many challenges. I actually had mentioned it one of the global event recently that in 2008, when the major banks of the world were failing, the government's response was that they're too big to fail. Therefore, they need to be protected. So I've been saying that you put in billions of dollars to save banks because they were too big to fail. Why don't you put millions of dollars in MSMEs, which are too small to succeed? If you're talking about too big to fail, what about those who are too small to succeed? Why not you put money there? So I think MSMEs need support. The present very important initiative by Prime Minister Modi is offering them government guaranteed credit lines will help them a great deal. There is also a lot of other measures which have been taken for supporting the medium and small enterprises. I think that will also go a long way in bringing in more viability as well as liquidity. See, there are two major challenges of small scale industry is solvency and liquidity. But then there is another challenge of small scale sector is to getting better technology into it, by getting better marketing support for it, ensuring that they get paid at the right time, because that's another problem. That maybe liquidity may not come because nobody is paying you at the right time because you are too small. Your negotiation ability is not that strong. But we have to work all that. I think MSMEs are definitely vulnerable, but we have to make sure that they succeed.
Okay, thank you. Piyush?
So you have the distinctive achievement of being the only commerce minister in 30 years to successfully reduce the trade deficit of India with respect to China, and that to the tune of massive $10 billion. Do you think that we can go further than this, especially considering extremely important technological input materials are made in China? Like, for instance, the majority of Indian pharmaceutical companies import their API from China. Also, how severely can we impact China on the trade front? To be fair, China's total export value is comparable to our entire GDP, and our imports only account for 3% of their total export. So we might not be able to make a serious dent. But I would like to know your views in this.
See, the India has a very clear vision. We have to be getting our energy security. That's why we are going in for our own diversification of energy sources. So we don't have to import 70% of oil. We can actually rely mainly on solar and wind energy, which is homegrown. Secondly, it's a food security, which we are already working on, and now India is fully food sufficient. The same way we should think about health security. The medicines that India makes, which have now appreciated the whole world in during pandemic, India could export to more than 70 countries these critical supplies of medicines. And now we are trying to work on making other element, the entire ecosystem of medicine. So obviously, our idea would be to do that. Actually, the government of India is working not very clearly on a platform. How do you make our economy strong, resilient, forward-looking, efficient, and technology-driven. So all of that is necessary to make those things happen. We'll work on it. Whether it's going to be immediate or in medium term, so because nothing can happen tomorrow. So we are working on a completely clear-cut plan. As I said, even $5 trillion plan was made ready because of it.
Okay. Thank you, sir. So, since we're talking about China, I think the natural.
I think we have to time 11:45. So
Oh.
we'll go for other program. Yeah.
Okay. Sorry, sir.
No. You had said 11:45 will close our other program. Please ask me.
Okay.
Last question.
I think I just end with the last question.
Yeah.
Since we're talking about China, the natural progression is to talk about India's domestic manufacturing jobs. And you refer to the district level development plan you had piloted in your tenure. I think in a similar spirit, the government of India in 2011 had launched the National Manufacturing Policy, where it had formulated the concept of NIMZ, the National Investment and Manufacturing Zones, to create industrial clusters in underdeveloped regions across the nation. However, in 9 years, we haven't seen any progress on that policy, as only 3 NIMZs have received final approvals, with some like the one in Vidarbha having zero progress visible. So, when do you think the government will start, approaching this policy with an aggressive mindset, considering the large demand of inexpensive land from foreign investors? And also, what is the mindset of the government? Do they want to create large urban industrialized areas where they bring people to the jobs? Or do they want to create small industrial clusters where they bring jobs to the people?
I think we need to do both. See, this is not either or. It's a very interestingly, we should create rural jobs so that people need not necessarily migrate into areas. And there are activities in rural areas which can be done very easily. And that's what we are identifying through the district-led growth. Which are those industries, which are those plans? And who is preparing this plan? The Indian Institute of Management and the National Council for Applied Economic Research. So they'll be very scientifically made plan, already done in fact. There is the plans for the 6 districts already been made. Other part would be that we need clusters, obviously, because if you really look at it, take chemical industry. Chemical industry needs common effluent treatment plants that is more cost effective. I was also Minister of Environment way back in 1998, and we have started promoting common effluent treatment plants. So small businesses which are into chemicals will not be burdened with the responsibility of purifying their own industrial waste, because that becomes very costly for them. And if the bottom line does not allow that to happen. So we decided to create common effluent treatment plant. Now, if you want common effluent treatment plant, it has to be cluster. It always helps. Then the advantage of a cluster is, say for leather industry, the advantage of a cluster is that you can bring skilled manpower together. In case of garments, we have a knitted garment wear in Tirupur, in Tamil Nadu, in the south. That helps in big way to promote it. So to answer your question, we need both. To make this cluster possible, we have been working on, and I also was responsible for that program. It's called Delhi-Mumbai Industrial Corridor. In that, there are various nodes. And those nodes we want to make, each node will be specialized into some activity or the other. So what will happen is that becomes then a cluster wherein a particular type of activity can be carried out in a larger scale. At the same time, as we always know, that large industries also need support of small industries.
Right.
Like automobile, which is a very large industry, but they cannot survive without auto components. And auto components, more or less, are made by small and medium enterprises. So small industries catering to large industries, both can operate either in cluster or ideally in cluster, but also can be decentralized depending upon the situation. But that does not take us away from a possibility of rural industries also growing fast. Right. Like I give an example of a bamboo. I started this program of bamboo in 1998 when I was Minister of Environment. Bamboo products can be made with fabulous designs in rural areas where the bamboo is grown. So we can have industries of different kind, but some part of that design products can be made in a large scale industry. So we can have both working at the same time. And also must remember one thing, that there's nothing like small which remains small forever. So they will also graduate, they will also grow big. And then those small industries can be absorbed into these clusters as well. So it is a gradual process of evolution that will happen as industries will grow. So I think this is what we strongly feel, that industrialization has to have different facets, different dimensions, and therefore we really feel that we'll grow both small, micro, small, medium, and large industries as part of the same ecosystem.
Okay.
Thank you for your insight on various topics and for answering our questions with so much patience. We really appreciate that. I would like to invite Anvita to propose the vote of thanks on behalf of our club.
Thank you so much, Pratyush. On behalf of Speaker Series India at Berkeley, I would like to thank Mr. Prabhu for taking out the time to interact with us today. I definitely learned a lot about India's policy priorities listening to your talk, and I'm sure our audience did too. It's been our absolute pleasure to host you virtually today, but we hope to stay in touch with you and host you in person at the Berkeley campus in future. We would also like to offer special thanks to Mr. Prabhu's team, namely Ravichandran ji, Reena ji, and Aniken ji, for coordinating the whole event with us and being so cooperative. Thank you for helping us make this event so successful. Last but not the least, I would also like to thank our audience for joining us today. I hope this was an enriching experience for you all and will join us for our future events. Please like and share our page on Facebook and Instagram to get all the updates. Thank you so much once again.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Really appreciate it. Let's be in touch. Thank you very much. God bless you.
Thank you.